Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 15 of the United Front Football Podcast. It is a football podcast. Thank you once again for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, give it a thumbs up or 5-star review on whatever platform you get your Spotify from, your podcast from. It started well. You could...
Sorry, that's thrown me. That's proper thrown me. Oh, God. Just the clarification.
It is a football podcast. We're still going on it. Well, we've got a few talking points. Obviously, we had quite a long episode last time covering some of like the broader things that have been going on in football. But we've actually had the United Front derby over the weekend, so we'll get into that a little bit and a couple of other things that have happened. We've just watched Man City take the 3 points tonight, so they're starting their second half of the season inevitable title charge against what I thought was a really good performance from Brentford, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. We've got a little bit of a January window roundup as well, if there was anything. It didn't even feel like there was a transfer window, to be honest, did it?
The real winner of the transfer window was FFP.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree.
The real winner was Pochettino, because they can't afford to sack him. We'll start off then. We've not got our viewer questions. I think we'll try and we'll reel some of those back in next week, I think. Now we're back on a bit of a roll with the episodes. But we may as well start with the aforementioned game at the weekend. So Man United 3, West Ham 0. I'd like to hear your opinions on the game. It felt to me, I mean, we just talked about it very briefly, like it felt a little bit like a nothing game where United were just uncharacteristically clinical. Created basically 3 chances, scored 3 chances. I thought the Højlund goal was really good. I thought the breakaway for the third goal was really good. Bit lucky on the second with the deflection, but those do go in. It felt a little bit like West Ham had a bit more. It felt like they had a bit more of the sway of the game, a bit more of the pitch tilt, if you want to call it that. But it almost felt like Man United kind of just kept them arm's length a little bit. There was like a lot of shots, like some all right chances that fell to Emerson, but it was like I think it felt like a lot of low quality chances rather than a couple of really killer ones that you guys could have taken and took the game. But if it had finished in a draw or a close loss, I don't think I'd have been surprised. I'm actually more surprised at the fact that we kind of looked a little bit solid through the game and took our chances, because that's just not what we've been doing at all this year. So hopefully it's a little bit of a turning point, but we've just lost our most important player again, so we'll see how that goes for the rest of the season. I want to get your opinion on it though, like obviously from a different viewpoint. Like, was it something that you watched and you were just frustrated with, like just the final third penetration maybe a little bit, or did it feel a little bit inevitable after that first and second goal went in?
It's an interesting one. I've been trying to sort of I've been thinking about it today in terms of like what's more annoying in terms of like losing when you feel like you've played well, or losing and you've just been crap. Because it's obviously it's different types of annoyance. Because it's just like when you've been crap, you're just kind of like, oh well, I hate everyone. But when you've actually been quite good, you almost have to sort of like dissect it a little bit more and like sort of look at it more like a few more times or whatever to try and figure out what actually happened. To be honest, I thought first half, even going in at 1-0 down at half time, I thought we were a better team. Like not by loads. I don't think we sort of dominated or anything, but I definitely felt we uncharacteristically for a game like this. I think traditionally, no matter what state Man United are in, under Moyes especially, we've gone to Old Trafford and teams like whether it be Liverpool away or Man United away, or whoever away, I feel like we play the badge more than we play the team, if that makes sense. And we always seem to sort of sit back and just sort of try and get a plucky 1-0 win on the break. Whereas this time I actually felt we tried to take the game to United a lot more, and we're a lot more on the front foot, and a lot more adventurous going forward than I thought we would be.
Yeah, it's like I don't mean this as a slight, but it was a very un-West Ham performance, especially away from home.
Yeah,
absolutely. It felt like a bit more what I'd expect from maybe not quite a Villa, but like like when you see like Brentford or something come to Old Trafford, and it's like, okay, they're gonna like put the pressure on us a bit here and see if they can work something and get something out of it. And I mean, like another day, one of those chances goes in, or like one of the Emerson chances finds the back of the net, and it's a different game.
Oh, God.
But yeah, when your best chances are falling to your left back, it's
well, this is the issue. It's kind of like I think you can link the issue. It's not the reason why we lost, but I think a part of the reason is going back to the transfer window, which obviously we'll touch on later. But we've let 2 left wingers go and not replaced them, and as a result, the one left winger we have got left at the club who's not injured, obviously, it's Paqueta, right? But he's not available right now. The only fit left winger we've got at the club is the one that Moyes doesn't want, or at least doesn't really trust. Like, I don't think he wanted Ben Rama or Fornals anymore anyway, but at least he trusted them enough to, if he needed to play him, he would have done. And I'm not saying they would have made a difference, like they wouldn't have, but when you haven't played Ben Johnson, who I thought had a pretty good game actually, but when you play Ben Johnson, who's a natural fullback at right midfield for the whole of the first half, then left wing for the second half, like, it kind of sums up where the lack of clinical sort of cutting edge was from us. And I don't think, like, there's been this whole thing all season whether Jared Bowen's actually suited to being a lone striker, and I think in some games he is, but against someone like Harry Maguire, who, like, when our game plan was, when we did get into good areas, was to cross the ball, like, Maguire must have been pissing himself because he's like, oh, okay, like, it's gonna make it easy for me then. Cool, cheers. Yeah, just frustrating. Like I say, second half, I was disappointed with how, because half time I'm sitting there thinking, oh, if we can, there's definitely, whatever happens, I was confident we were going to at least score at least one goal. I was like, I can't see us not scoring with the way we're playing, and the way
Onana's back in goal. So,
well, yeah, there's that, right? There's that. Like, I just thought there was going to be a chance for us to definitely score. But then I think when the second goal went in, obviously it's fortunate for you guys, obviously, with deflecting in, because another day that goes wide or goes into the keeper's arms or whatever. Like, I think that just kind of took the stuffing out of us a little bit. And then obviously the third goal is another stinker from Calvin Phillips, unfortunately, who's not having the greatest start. Like, he made a mistake against Bournemouth a few days before. I don't really attribute that mistake to him. I put that more on Zuma for just giving him an absolute hospital pass on the edge of his own box.
Didn't he like put it 15 yards in front of him when he wasn't even running in the right direction? It's like, it looks like he's lost the ball though. Like,
just put him in the absolute shit 3 minutes into his West Ham career. So it's like, welcome. This is what it's like.
We've got Kurt Zuma.
Who is, I mean, Kurt Zuma, a man who can barely stand on one leg anymore, let alone play football. Like, he's fucking, he's been injured for that. Like, he hasn't got, I don't think one of his knees works. So I think he's basically been playing with an injury for the best part of like a year now. And you can see it in the way he runs, and like, he can't turn quickly. He's got no dexterity or anything. He's just useless, basically. But maybe not useless, that's probably harsh. But yeah, but anyway, back on Phillips, the third goal, I definitely put it down to him because he lets the ball run across his body and gets bullied by McTominay. And it's like, in that instance, I don't care if you lose the ball, either foul the man and give away a free kick or just be a bit stronger. But I think that's probably the lack of match sharpness and lack of just overall football in the last sort of year.
In 18 months, hasn't
that's
he?
The thing.
Because to be fair, like, he's never been like the most consistent player in terms of being available. Like, even at Leeds, he was injured a lot of the time. Like, in that first season he came up with Leeds, I think is the most games he's played. And I think he only played 25 league games, or something about that. And he's been like dogged with injuries. It's obviously not worked out going to City. I like when he plays well, I think he's a good player. Like, I think he's a solid player. Yeah. He's shown it for England that he's quite a dynamic midfielder. And I think he definitely improves West Ham's midfield options. But if you've got a midfield of him, JWP, Edson Alvarez with like, your forwards in front of that, I think it's a better midfield than with Souček in there.
I think me being in that midfield be a better midfield with Souček in there, to be
honest. He's a weird player, Souček. Like, because there were certain situations in certain games, or like certain games that suit his play style, where it's like, holy shit, he's unplayable. He's a bit Fellaini-ish. Whereas, like, he can really impact games in ways other players just can't. But he can't do fundamental midfielder stuff that well. And when you're up against a team that holds possession and plays a traditional midfield game against him, he looks really weak.
You spoke about Scott McTominay a few episodes back. And I think the way you summed up McTominay was basically described Souček, and like, he doesn't offer anything possession, doesn't offer low. I think Souček will a bit more defensive than McTominay does. Yeah, but like, his primary role in the team is to get into the box and get on the end of stuff. Like, and that's only what he's in the team to do. The problem with that is, though, and this is why I was kind of happy, even though he's had a slow start, I do think Phillips overall will be a good signing for West Ham. Like, I think, I agree. I think he does improve that midfield and hopefully take Souček out of it. But the issue is Souček is better when he's in the penalty area. Now, the problem with that is James Ward-Prowse is rubbish when you play him further back as part of like a double pivot. So and he's much better when he's sort of playing in that 10 role and he's sort of doing the pressing job with Bowen up front. Like that's where he's been most effective for us this season. But that means that Souček can't then be in the box because then you're leaving one midfielder back because our fullbacks push on. So it's kind of like he is essentially just. And I don't mean it's horrible as it's going to sound. He's a waste of a shirt at the moment because it's like the one thing you're good at you can't do because the other players' roles in the team doesn't allow for that to happen all that often.
There's a direct correlation with different kinds of players, but when McTominay plays in the United team, Bruno has to play deeper, which takes the best parts of his game away, and it's like and he's not offering anything creatively. But I think McTominay at the weekend and even like the game in midweek showed what he can be useful for, like coming on for the last 20 minutes when you need a bit of chaos. Because he doesn't know what he's going to do. So how does the opposition know what he's going to do?
Exactly.
He just crashes the box, creates problems, and that's exactly what happened to get the assist for Garnacho. Yeah. It's what happened when he kind of accidentally bundled the ball in at midweek, and set us up for the most chaotic game. I mean, we're not going to talk about that, but that was just fucking madness. We should have been 6-0 up at half time. And we're relying on an 18-year-old and Scott McTominay who can't play football to get us a win. So, it's a similar kind of thing with that, I guess. I'm sure it wouldn't be as much of an issue if you see him on the bench and you're 1-1 going into the 80th minute. You think, all right, let's get him in the box and kick the ball at his head.
Exactly, yeah, and that'd be great. But what was I said in your Discord yesterday? I was watching the first half, and I said, when you play Sunday League. Sometimes there's not enough players available, so one of the dads has to get a kit on and play.
Yeah,
that was basically Thomas Souček yesterday. I'm watching Edson Alvarez, who I thought again was just fantastic. I thought Alvarez was the best midfielder on the pitch yesterday. I thought he was. Bear in mind he's meant to be like our holding midfielder. He was the most dynamic, looked like the most creative, the most sort of willing to get the ball forward and drive and create stuff for us and make stuff happen. And I'm just watching Thomas Souček sort of plod along, and it's like. I watched the first goal, and it's a really well taken goal from Højlunds. But I can when Casemiro wins the ball back, it's like Ward-Prowse arguably should be stronger in that situation to react to the sort of cleared ball. But then Souček sort of gets caught in two minds of whether to go, and then he sort of backs up and basically just sort of goes, "Oh, go on then," and just sort of lets Højlund get away from him. And there was a moment in the first half, I think it was, Rashford was running at the defence towards our goal, and Souček. I watched Souček. He just moves out the way. I'm like, dude.
I'm not keeping up with him.
Yeah. He's like, dude, just wrestle him to the ground or something. Don't just fucking go. On you go, Marcus.
Yeah. I mean, Marcus has famously been in incredible form this year, and it's impossible to
maybe
stop.
It's just Souček's charity work for the year. So let's get him a goal, get his confidence back. So yeah, overall, I'm not as annoyed as I was after Bournemouth on Thursday because I thought we were dire again. And the only reason we came away with points because Alphonse Areola was really good. And so we were just dreadful on Thursday. Yeah, Sunday was a lot better, and it's just I think 3-0 is quite a harsh scoreline. I don't think it really reflects how the game
it's
panned out. Really,
I think definitely.
Yeah, I'd say so. So, but Paqueta's hopefully back soon. I mean, not an easy game. We've got Arsenal at home next week, which is I'll say not an easy one. Beat them twice already this season, so you never know. Might get another favour from Declan.
Oh, it'd be the most Arsenal thing to beat Liverpool and then lose to West Ham.
And lose to us. Yeah.
I'd love it.
It really would be.
I'd love it if you beat them.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. But, like I say, from West Ham point of view, it's not great, but we'll be fine. And, it's people need to stop with the whole Moyes in, Moyes out thing now because it's really boring. I know it's just kind of getting... It's been a really good season so far, overall. It's kind of feels like no one can really enjoy it because everyone's just arguing with each other all the time.
Everyone's just too busy whinging.
Basically, yeah. So, yeah.
I think it's the kind of the flip-flop is you can't be too unhappy because the performance was pretty good. I think it's the first time where we played just okay, but looked like we were clinical when we had our chances. So if we can keep doing that, then I think we'll just have a better second half of the season because that's just not what we've been doing. We've not been keeping clean sheets. We've not been creating chances, let alone taking them. So it's nice that our forwards are getting on the score sheet. Garnacho's looking like he's making better decisions off the right. He's not just cutting in and shooting all the time. Højlund looks like he's got a bit of confidence in himself. and yeah, we kept a clean sheet. So again, I think it's just my only worry with you guys would be like, yeah, my only worry with you guys would be the forward option. Like obviously, like Bowen's been great, but I think he's always looked better when he's kind of got that bit of a free roll off the right to like run in behind or get things. He's not a focal point. He's like I don't think he has that game to him, and I think if he's playing up there as a single striker, you almost need like a Soucek behind him to offer something like to play up to play off. Because even with, I mean, it might be different with Paqueta off the left and
I think that's
off the right.
I think that's the key. I think Paqueta is crucial because I think a big part of it is Paqueta is one of the only few people in the team who will try those sort of chip passes over the. It's how we scored our first goal against you guys when you played at our place. Like it feels like he's the only one really in the team who's constantly looking for Bowen's run, and Bowen knows if I make a run, he might not find me the first, second, or third time, but eventually Paqueta is going to find me, and I'll get myself in. We haven't really got anyone else in the team who can do that. Like Alvarez obviously did it when he put Bowen through, and Dallo made that miracle recovery challenge at 2-0. He's like, when that happened, I was like, okay, fair enough. We're not scoring. Like, it's one of those days. But like, I think Paqueta being in the team makes a big difference. It is interesting you say about needing to be a vocal point up front. I actually agree. I want to see more, not necessarily throughout the whole game, but I just want to see him and Kudus switch throughout the game, because a big part of Kudus' game that I think goes unnoticed is just how strong he is. I think there was a moment in the first half, he had a couple of defenders on him, and he just held them off. Like,
he gave Dallo a torrid time on the left hand side.
Yeah,
like the entire. A lot of people I saw online were saying, "Oh, yeah, Dallo had a great game." So, well, no, he had one really good recovery tackle, but I think Kudus went past him about 6 times in the game. Like he had him on toast.
We did you guys a favour in the second half by switching Kudus and Johnson over. So if you notice in the second half, we put Kudus back on the left and on the right. Sorry. And I remember from the game at our place, Shaw, up until we scored, Shaw did a really good job on Kudus and kept him quiet for the majority of that. So I was surprised. I was a bit like, I'm glad Moyes switched it to try and do something different. But it's like you've put him up against someone who's at his number already, where he's getting so much joy against Dallo in the first half.
Yeah,
I think that's why there was a little bit of a drop off from Kudus in the second half.
Yeah, and Luke Shaw looks like he turned up in, contract year mode. he has weird like 6-month periods where he either looks like he can't be arsed playing or he's the best left back in Europe. And I think he's coming back in, getting fit, and he's looking really good again. There's no in between. There's no just like solid 7 out of 10s every week. It's either 3s or 8s. But yeah, we'll see how it goes for us the rest of the season. But yeah, like you say, I don't think you guys played particularly badly at all. And if anything, scoreline flatters us.
I did. There was a few United fans in my chat yesterday just being like, oh, we're back, and all this sort of thing, and like, oh, we've got this really. I like talking about when Garnacho scored and he did the Kudus celebration. It's like, oh, we got like a really iconic photo. I was like, fuck off, is that an iconic photo? What are you on about? Like, do me a favor.
It's really awkward, like, because I'm very much like I say that kind of stuff in the same way that I played It's Coming Home. Same way I played Three Lions. It's like, it's coming home now, lads. We've beaten, beaten Kosovo away 1-0. It's coming home. You've kind of got to figure out the people that take it too serious. But I mean, same with any supporting group, right? There's always absolute.
And to be fair, I was well and truly salty yesterday. So.
Yeah, you were full Carragher after the Arsenal game.
Head was gone.
Yeah, it's gone full salt lick.
Not spitting at children levels are full gone, but
no. I mean, everyone's got limits, right? So speaking of, we'll move on to the Arsenal-Liverpool game. Again, I think Arsenal actually played quite well. Like, not quite as good as I thought Arsenal played better when they lost to Liverpool, when they absolutely battered them and hit every post and then lost. I thought they played pretty well. I thought Liverpool, I mean, it was a more even goal game, I think, than the scoreline shows. I thought Liverpool was slow at the blocks in the first half, but came out well in the second half. And then you just can't quantify for the best goalkeeper in the world having 2 absolute howlers like that.
Yeah.
Like, probably still the best centre-back in the Premier League, even though I do think he's a bit overrated, but like I think he's still probably the best centre-back in the Premier League. and the best goalkeeper in the world. I don't think there's anyone challenging that.
No.
Having together just two absolute mares. I mean, the third goal where it's like deflected and goes through his legs looks worse than it is because of the deflection.
Yeah,
but
I'd agree.
he's just kind of like stood there. It's like, well, try.
Yeah, yeah.
But the was it the second one or the first one where they just kind of like run into each other?
The second goal,
that
yeah.
was just hilarious. Fantastic. Van Disney's at it again.
Yeah, I felt like a real killer for Liverpool because I felt that, like, I agree. I think Arsenal were battered them in the first. I bet I couldn't believe they were going at 1-1 because even Liverpool's goal was a absolute calamity between was it Saliba and Raya? Right,
Yeah.
Arsenal battered them for the entire first half, and then like Saliba just doesn't clear the ball. Like I saw people blaming Raya for it, but like if you're in that situation, it's like, okay, he's closing in on me, just fucking kick out for a corner, just get rid of it. But
yeah.
So going at 1-1 at half time, Arsenal probably felt a little bit like, oh, fuck's sake, how's this happened? And I actually thought up until the Alisson Van Dijk moment, I thought Liverpool were looking the most likely to go on and win the game. Like, it looked a lot more in control, a lot more dangerous. And then that happens, and it just kind of swung all the momentum back in Arsenal's favour, really, didn't it? So
yeah, and like even when they went down to 3-1, and like they were starting to come back into it a little bit, I thought like Liverpool controlling a lot of possession. I thought, all right, this is where like they'll find something because that's what Liverpool do, and then Konate gets his second yellow. It's like just absolutely nail in the coffin. Klopp looking shell shocked on the sidelines, which I'll always love. But the best thing about it is Arsenal now believe they're going to win the title. We'll take a 5-minute laugh break.
To be fair, someone asked me yesterday, like, oh, so what do you reckon? Does this put Arsenal back in the title race? I was like, oh, it absolutely does. Like, it doesn't. We can't say it doesn't put them back in the race because I think they're now like. I think now City have won their game in hand. It's sort of skewed my maths a little bit, but yeah. So they're 2 points behind Liverpool, and they're level on points with City. City obviously have a game in hand. So you win that game in hand, they'll be 3 points behind them. So it's like they're definitely in it. And if they had lost, that would have been a calamity for. They would have been out of it. Like, I think it would have been too much to make up if Liverpool won that. Even if they'd drawn it, I think it would have been a little bit of a stretch too far. But they're definitely in it. But I think they're third favourites. Like, they've just not been as good as Liverpool have been for the majority of this season, and what City are going to be for the rest of this season.
Yeah. What City inevitably will be. Like, now they've got the two best players in the team back. Like, people forget like they've been missing the best players for the last 3 months. And again, like, just the what I've been reading on, and I know it's Twitter and hearing on phone-in shows and stuff. It's like Arsenal fans convincing themselves they're going to win the title now. This is their time, and it's just going to be even more hilarious when they inevitably finish third.
Yeah,
because they will. It's going to be Liverpool or Man City first, the other one second. They're going to finish third, maybe even fourth. We can hope.
I mean, Villa are still there. Still there. Absolutely, just fucking just rocked up at Bramwell Lane and just went, right, let's get this done in 20 minutes and go.
Yeah. I was fuming. I'd captained Ollie Watkins on my fantasy league team. I thought, he's got 3 assists and a goal by half time. This is going to be the easiest points I've ever had. And they just dialed in the second half, didn't they?
I think it goes on to that thing. Like, I'm not gonna, as funny as it's going to be when they don't win it, because Arsenal fans traditionally are insufferable. I think we said that before. I don't think that's too controversial of a take. But I'm not going to have a go at them for being, for believing, because you should, if you're an Arsenal fan, right? You should, but like, especially I think a few weeks ago, they probably convinced themselves they were out of it, and they've got this win. They're probably thinking they're back in it. I don't think they will, because I think it's all well and good being in the title race now, which is what happens when the Champions League comes back, and how they're going to balance that out with what Mikel Arteta described as the thinnest squad in the league, which is hilarious. But like, bit of a stretch.
I've only spent 600 million.
I know, yeah. I've only got one 100 million pound midfielder. Oh, worries me. Chelsea got 2 of them, allegedly. But like, I haven't seen any evidence yet. But no, like I said, they've got every right to sort of dream and all that sort of thing and celebrate despite what people think. But yeah, like I say, they're not going to win it, so it's like, just enjoy it while it lasts. Is what I'd say.
Enjoy it. Enjoy every moment up until like the end of May when you inevitably crying again with 0 trophies.
Like game week 34. That's like when I've blew a 2-0 lead at home to Sheffield United. I reckon it's probably.
Yeah, I mean, you just mentioned Villa very briefly there, and I've had this a couple of chats on Twitter and like on my Discord about it. Of like they're a weird team because they can turn up and just blow a team away in 45 minutes like they did at the weekend, but they can also turn up and look bang average as against certain teams. They're very similar to Brighton in that way. I think they're a more polished, better finished article than Brighton. But if a team comes up with a way to stop them, they don't really know how to stop that. Like if they've got a plan for them, and a bit like Spurs as well. Spurs have looked like that a lot this season. I think they're very similar teams, them and Spurs. When a team's got a plan for them, and they can't break them down or kind of can't go to their plan B or C, they can look pretty average. So I wonder whether that's going to cost them their top 4 in the second half of the season, or whether, I mean, Emery's a fantastic manager. Emery will probably think of something, and I know they have got quite a few players missing, haven't they, as well? So when they come back, especially in defence at least, so.
Oh yeah, because I think Torres is out for them at the moment, right? And he's been colossal for them this season. And
yeah, Torres has been great. I think they've been missing. Tyrone Mings has been out, although that's probably help.
He's been better since Emery's come in. It's been really good.
To be fair.
I was watching something about. I was watching it was a West Ham video, like the West Ham channel video. They mentioned Emery as like a reference point, and they said like he's got to improve players and stuff, and players like Tyrone Mings look a lot better since Emery come in. And so, the other guy's like, yeah, you also got to remember, Steven Gerrard was his previous manager. Yeah.
Has he improved them, or has he just got them back to their level?
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's like it might just be a really good just sort of like recovery job rather than like you elevate you to this next level. Yeah. Like no, just go right back to where you were. Yeah. Like.
First of all, first day on the job, boys. I want you to forget everything that Steven Gerrard told you. He just walks in with a Men in Black light, just flashes them. It's like, right, well, we're pretty much guaranteed for Europe then.
Yeah, it's how to play football again. Mental. It's. I think with teams like that though, it's. I think I back. That's why I back Villa to get top 4 because Emery has shown he's willing to and capable of adapting how he sets the team up depending on who they face, and I think more often than not, that's gonna lead to success for them.
Yeah.
But obviously, you have these teams who aren't your traditional, top 6, top 4 sides or whatever, who don't have the same, like maybe not financial resource because Villa do have a lot of money to spend, but maybe not the same pulling power of like your Arsenals, your Cities, and all that. Is that they just in those sort of games where they are struggling to break a team down, it just shows they just haven't got those 1 or 2 elite level players to unlock something. It's like they have not everyone can have a Kevin De Bruyne or a Martin Odegaard or someone like that. And I think that's you see it all the time with these sort of teams who sort of are making that push into the top 4. Like West Ham had it in the COVID season when we finished 6th. Like we got to a point we looked like crack top 4, and we camped against a few teams who just went, oh, okay, no, they're really good. Let's just sit 10 yards back, and we just didn't know what to do. Like
Brighton had it last year as well. I mean, and having it this year as well. Like they've obviously, like Brighton are slightly different in that they've lost some of their most important players. But they're just. It's really funny. I was going through like a load of kind of under the hood stats last season, yesterday, from this season, because I'm a loser and that's what I do apparently. Because I was thinking like as good as Brighton were last season and as solid as they've been this year, they just don't seem as like potent. So I was going through like the underlying numbers of stuff, and it's just like little things like Evan Ferguson, who looked like he started on a tear this season, was great last year. He's barely getting any chances, and like the amount of chances that they're getting to their important, influential players in the final third, then it's just not being created anymore. They've been a little bit shaky in defence, and I think maybe they're just trending, kind of like Newcastle have this year. Maybe they're just trending back to the norm of where they should be.
Yeah,
like they've had a couple of years of really overproducing and really overperforming. And I've said this about Newcastle, like they've overperformed for 18 months solid and looked great. They genuinely look brilliant. But I think they've they've almost hit the wall, and like they're trending back to the norm of where they should actually be, which is a top 8 probably. And I think Brighton are the same. They're going to be like upper mid-table. and it'll be interesting to see what Villa do, because, like you say, Villa have got a lot of spending power. They've got some really good players. I think it's going to be a massive summer for them this year as to whether they can keep hold of their really good players.
Yeah.
The players like Leon Bailey, Ollie Watkins. Like, I could see a big bid for an Ollie Watkins this summer because he has been amazing. Like, I think last year he was really good. This season he's just kicked on again. He's looking like the complete striker now. Like,
he's someone I said Man United
scores
should be
goals,
targeting.
creates goals. He does everything.
Yeah, he's someone I said Man United should be targeting. Like, in terms of someone who can play not just down the middle but can play off the left as well. Like, just gives you another option, and he's just really good. It's just he's gone from being like a mid-table, we'll get you sort of 10, 12 goals a season, to just being like Mr. Reliable. Sort of like, I think what people thought Calvert-Lewin was going to be a few years ago before, like, it was injury problems and stuff. Just, he's a really, really good player. And then, really, I don't think he's like, this is someone who's going to attract bids, because I don't think he's it's a weird one. I don't think he's like a fashionable enough name to attract big club attention. But like, John McGinn's been crucial to that Villa team in that midfield as well. He's been absolutely brilliant.
He's the kind of midfielder that every team needs. Like, he's not an elite kind of defensive midfielder or creator, but he's everywhere. Like, he is just like, he's the all action midfielder that every team needs.
Yeah.
Like,
he's what Henderson was to Liverpool in those sort of years when they were, losing one game a season and getting like 90 plus points. And everyone was saying, oh, Henderson's a weak spot. It's like, no, you take him at that period. I remember, but if Henderson didn't play, Liverpool looked significantly worse.
Yeah.
And I think McGinn's probably at some level.
The same with like mid 2000s with Darren Fletcher at United. Like, those kind of players just go under the radar. Like, they do their job really well, like to a very high level. But their job is filling in the gaps everywhere. Like filling in the gaps that other creative players like leave. Like you say, Jordan Henderson was the perfect example of that. But they've got a load of really good players. I think it'll be a big summer for them. Like you say, United should be looking at Ollie Watkins. I think Arsenal should throw a load of money at him. Yeah, they're like they need that kind of player who will lead the line, can lead the line, will get in behind, is a clinical finisher, but also can play that possession style of football. Like, he can drop deep, create for other people, and beat a man. Like, I think he'd be the perfect pickup for them. But I mean, whether they'll be able to get him out of there, I don't know. Like I say, I think if Villa can hold on to those players and just add a little bit of depth in other places, I think they've got one of the best keepers in the league. Their defense when they're fully fit is really good. Their midfield
as well.
Yeah, and like their midfield's really, really good. Like, got a couple of young players coming through. Like Ramsey's, like when he gets back fully fit, he was really good. They've got like solid, proven Premier League players in that midfield option. They've got like game changers up top. Like they could genuinely, if they keep the players and step on, push on to be a consistent top 6 team. Especially when you've got teams like, who knows what Chelsea's going to be next year. Like, who knows what? Well, they can't spend any more money, so those players playing. Like, and how other teams are gonna handle the whole rebuilds and changing of managers, because I think this summer's going to be a massive thing for manager movements. And actually, speaking of keeping hold of players, I think keeping hold of Emery is going to be just as important, obviously. But I could see a lot of teams coming in for him, because there's going to be big teams wanting a big manager, and I don't think his stock's ever been this high.
I think if Ten Hag ever gets the bullet, bites the bullet at United, I think he's someone you mentioned as a possible, or someone that Liverpool should be looking at. I think not that Ten Hag's in any immediate threat, but there's still all these noises about Ineos coming in and maybe want to change manager. Like,
he should be at the top of every big club's list, genuinely, because he's proven it time and time again. Arsenal aside, when that was a basket case, just the wrong time for him. It was the same, different kind of thing, but the same thing with Moyes at United. Like, whoever was going in first thing after that kind of tenure, they're gonna struggle, and that's my worry with, like we said last time, that's my worry with whoever goes in at Liverpool now. It's not a 20-year reign, but it's the best part of a decade, and a manager that's loved by the club.
Like, I think in terms of modern football and how long managers usually are at clubs for, it's definitely comparable to.
Oh yeah.
To that, you know what I mean? Like, it might not be the same length of time, but it's sort of like
just how much he is a part of the fabric at the club as well. Yeah, like it is in his image. Like the club and the fans love him. Like, he loves the club. Like, you can tell. Like, Yeah, it's going to be a big replacement. That anyway. Anyway, we kind of touched on Chelsea a little bit there. Another fantastic performance from them at the weekend, losing 4-2 at home to Wolves. Although Wolves have kind of defied my expectations and a lot of people's expectations, I thought they were nailed on for going down, to be honest.
Yep. Same.
But they've slowly improved. When their players have been coming back, they've been getting better. They're looking solid, and they're playing some good football. Again, Gary O'Neill, I think, is going to be a manager in high demand. Should there be teams above them? I mean, speaking of Villa, like if Villa need a manager, this guy's just proven that he's constantly getting more than the sum of the parts out of the players that he's got at his disposal. And another really good game from them. And was it a hat-trick by Cunha?
Yeah, I know.
The person who couldn't score before he came to the Premier League.
Exactly. Couldn't have his last 6 games, with banjo.
Yeah.
He's just on fire.
But yeah, like played really well. Like Chelsea just look lost. Like, and I tweeted this out. Like the big complaint that I keep hearing on whatever phone it is, whether it be 5 Live or TalkSport or Chelsea pundits and like saying things like, "Oh, there's not enough experience." It's like, no, there is. Like you've got a lot of experience in that team. Like when 6 or 7 out of your preferred starting 11 are mid to late 20s, Premier League experience, and then you put in a World Cup winner in Enzo in there. Christopher Nkunku, whilst he's not experienced in the Premier League, he's 26 years old. He's not a kid. Like this isn't and even players like Gallagher, like they've been playing in the Premier League for 3 years now. Like you're putting the captain's band on him. Like you believe he's got enough experience for that. Granted, they're missing Reece James, but he's probably better off the pitch than on the pitch based off his performances since he came back from injury. But yeah, they just look lost. And now you've got the whole Thiago Silva's wife basically saying sack the manager, which is great. Yeah. What can you want?
It's Chelsea are. It's so weird with Chelsea. Funny but weird because like
hilarious. Like please don't change.
Yeah, I don't want this to change. It's great. I'm loving it. But like it feels like whenever it feels like they're always. There's been a few moments this season where you feel like, oh, they've turned a corner, like, oh, this is the moment now where they're going to kick on, and they almost always follow it up with a result like this, like every single, and then they go on a run where they just look hopeless. Like I think we go back to the start of the season. I think we both said we were actually quite impressed with how, other than Liverpool first game of the season, right? I think we both said we were quite impressed with how well they played, and like actually they could be quite good this season, and it's just. They just can't get a consistent run of form together. Apart from individually, they can. Like Cole Palmer's been a consistent performer for them this season, and like there's probably a few others you could maybe pick out. Like Gusto maybe has looked all right, like most of the time when he's played this year. But they're just not. Chelsea are like a perfect example of just how not to build a squad and to manage a football club. Especially at any level, really, but especially at Premier League level for a club who have ambitions of not just being in the Champions League, but eventually challenging for a league title. It's been so poorly managed from everyone, like from Poch, from Bowley. It's the whole situation is a mess. Like you spent all this money to assemble all these like great young players or like players less than 24. But there's no cohesion there. It's not like it doesn't feel like any of these players have been brought in to play a particular style of like system or anything. Like at least at Spurs, you could see the sort of players that when Poch was at Spurs, you could see the sort of players they're identifying that were going to fit into the way he wanted to play. In this system, it feels like a mishmash of about players who can fit about 3 or 4 different styles of play or whatever. Like,
most of the signings that had happened were basically coming in before he even joined, right?
Yeah.
Like, half of the squad was there under Potter, or came in under Potter, and it's probably the same thing. He was just given players rather than being involved in the decision, which I don't necessarily hate, as long as the people making the decisions know what they're doing. Like if you've got a talented and experienced director of football or recruitment team, like doing the joined up thinking for the managers, like, and then you bring in the manager that fits the style of play. It just doesn't feel like that. It reeks of, someone on Reddit going, "I've spent £1 billion on my team on Football Manager and I'm losing." Like, what's going on? It's like, well, have you done any put any thought into this,
Yeah.
or have you just looked for players with a who've got favourable stats from last year, or like people who are highly regarded, where is the joined up thinking there? And I don't doubt in time they can get there. Like I have seen improvements in some players. Like I think Mudryk looks like he's getting a bit more confident, like because he just looked completely devoid of it. And Nkunku I think looks decent when he's played, but he's missed half a season. Cole Palmer, like you say, I think is the best signing they've made. There are shoots there, and there are times when I watch Chelsea going, they're playing some good football here, and then they just don't concede 4 goals against Wolves, and then they're losing again. Like it's just there's nothing there. Poch already looks like he doesn't want to be there, and now he's got his most experienced player there, kind of not personally, but causing an issue through his wife. But like I can't remember who it was who tweeted this out. Like Chelsea can't sack him because then they'll be in breach of FFP. Like if they spend any more money, they're already they're skirting on their overdraft. It's like, oh god, I can't afford that bag of crisps because that'll push me over. Like they can't be doing more stuff because they didn't move anyone out in January. Like they couldn't ship anyone else out, so they've not got any leeway to do this stuff. So I think. I say they're stuck with him until the end of the season. I don't necessarily think sacking him's the right thing to do anyway, because this is now the second manager who has shown he's a good coach in the past. I don't particularly think he's an elite manager, but he's shown he's a decent coach in the past, and he can't get anything out of these players. The same with Potter before. I mean Lampard, whatever. He's not a particularly great coach, but it's been 18 months of chaos and poor performances and nothing really coming off. And there's too many players there. The squad's too big. No one's getting a run of games. No one's it's one thing to have players challenging each other for positions on the pitch. It's another thing thinking, I've just signed for this club and I'm third choice, fourth choice in my position. Like, where am I going to be getting the game? So you just end up with this series of rotation decisions being made that don't need to be made, which means you're getting inconsistent performances. I just don't see how it changes unless they get someone in competent making the football decisions and go, we need to just cut our losses in half for these players. Literally get rid of 8 players in the summer. We're going to make a few $100 million loss on this, but we've got to for the sake of solidifying it and getting a cohesive team. But have they even brought anyone in yet? In that decision making. Fold. I don't know. I don't.
I think they're bringing in Tottenham's CEO, which I'm sure will go down well.
Yeah.
But I think there's also and obviously again this probably is obviously isn't on Poch really, I suppose, because like you say, I think all the transfer decisions are being made above his head really. But they've got. I know why they've sold their players from their youth academy. It's because it's pure profit, and on the balance sheets it all reflects well and stuff, but they've got we spoke about sort of homegrown players coming through last week, so it does sort of tie in quite nicely. And Chelsea have a really good academy, and what's useful when you have a really good academy of players who probably are capable of stepping into especially the situation they're in now, which is they are a mid-table side right now. You have players then who give a shit, and I'm not saying that every single player who plays for them don't care, but Enzo Fernandez didn't join Chelsea to be 11th in the Premier League in his first full season. Nkunku didn't leave Leipzig to join Chelsea to be 11th, and countless examples across the sort of signs they made, right? But at least if you have more of those sort of academy players in there, one, you probably get a little bit more leeway from the supporters, but two, you've got people in the dressing room who can sort of try and galvanise the rest of the group and be like, well, no, come on, this is what it means to play for Chelsea. Let's try, it helps the manager get his sort of point across and get that sort of message of sort of everyone singing off the same hymn sheet across. Whereas if you've got no one who's got any real connection to the football club in there, it does make it a lot more difficult, I think. Maybe, and it's maybe not for what Chelsea want to be. Maybe it's not that important, but let's say where they are now, I think they probably could have done with players like that to sort of the fans can get behind and, will give a little bit more, playing for the shirt and stuff. As much as cliche as it sounds like, I do think there's something in that. And as well, like on Poch, like I don't necessarily blame him for how it's, he's got to take some responsibility. I don't necessarily blame him for how it's gone this season, like entirely. I've got to say at this point, he's crap at choosing jobs. Like since leaving Tottenham, like he went to PSG, who was one of the biggest basket case clubs in world football, where he had like a front three of play. He wants to play like a sort of possession/pressing system, and he had 3 luxury players leading his line from at PSG who weren't going to do any pressing. So he was already hamstrung by that. And he's walked into Chelsea where it's just equally as much of a mess. But the downside is he's still going to get a league title at the end of the season. Like PSG is a basket case, but you're literally going to get a trophy at the end of it.
Yeah, but it's almost like you almost win that by default. It doesn't really
that's
count,
the thing. So it doesn't really matter. So
it's like taking over Bayern. Oh, you won a title.
Yeah.
Well done. You've got all the best players. You've stolen all the best players in the league.
Yeah. So, well, good for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, it's even making like Reece James captain. I thought was an odd one at the start of the season because it's like, well, you kind of want your captain to play.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
maybe he was hoping. Maybe he was hoping he'd finally got over his issues. I don't know. Like,
but it's even like they brought in Gusto, and I'm saying the season. I was like, to be fair, that's a really. I've only actually signed him last year and sent him back on loan to Leon. But I was like, that's a really good signing because like he's got it's well rated, competent right back. So he's been playing at a decent level for Leon prior to this season where they're in the bin. But like been playing like sort of Europa League level for Leon as a squad option for Chelsea is actually not a bad deal because then when Reece James does get injured, they don't have to rush him back all the time. But because they started the season so poorly, it was still like we need Reece James back. And so he rushed him back and he's got injured again straight away. Like Chilwell's come back and not looked anywhere near his best, like since before his injury. And
even at his best, Chilwell, he's just a fine left back. Like, he's not a bad left back, but I don't think he's anything elite. I thought he was fine when he was at Leicester. I think he's been fine when he's been at Chelsea. Like, when we're playing a back five and his ability to crash the box and nick a goal massively overshadowed like the other deficiencies in his game. I don't think he's a very complete player.
No,
but he's better than Mark Cucurella, so
yeah. Oh yeah, Christ, quite a lot. But yeah, like they had Emerson. They given him to us, and he's been one of the best left backs in the league this season.
Yeah.
The rugby effort at the weekend, but yeah, it's like I say, it's from like just watching it from the outside in. I can understand why Chelsea fans are pissed off. Like, obviously, they have every right to be, and it is just like. Sort of, I don't know, I get annoyed by incompetence. So I want to see how badly Chelsea are run. I'm just like, how are you making this much of a pig's ear of it? But on the flip side, it is Chelsea. So yeah, long may it continue. And like we said, it's not even if, right? They're very likely not going to get any unless they win the League Cup, they will get Conference League, which they're not going to take seriously. Not going to get any sort of like, for their standards, meaningful European football next season. It's going to be really interesting to see what that means for them in terms of the FFP thing and
if they don't get
to spend in the summer.
I think even if they just get Europa League football, I think they are knackered. I think they needed Champions League football this season to kind of weigh off the signings they've made, and usually like it's a good barometer. Like money spent and wages paid is usually a good barometer as to where you're going to finish in the league. But Man United have been proving that ain't the case for the last 10 years. With incompetent signings and overpaying players, like some of those players that they've picked up are really good signings. I'd argue that all of their signings are good signings, but not all at the same time at the same club. Like, I think if you have an established, team that needs a bit of a refresh, and you bring in 5 or 6 of those players, if you bring in a Cole Palmer and a Malo Gusto and a even a Mudryk and an Nkunku, like you go, oh cool, we've refreshed the squad quite a bit there. Enzo, great player. Like we've refreshed the squad, we brought in some really good players. When you've brought in like 15 and shipped out all the players who were kind of solid squad players who've been there for a while, granted who have been underachieving for a little bit, but it's like it's chicken or the egg with that. But it's like, where do you go with it now? Like, I don't think sacking the manager is the answer because I don't necessarily think a different manager is going to get any more out of the players. You can't get rid of all these players halfway through a season. Like in the summer, you're going to be losing. You're going to be losing some of those players. Like in the summer, I would not be astounded if Thiago's not signing a new deal, is he? No. I would not be astounded if you had players like Enzo like kind of ending up somewhere else. Like,
Yeah.
like he might be off. He might be the player that, you know, the City pick up to go in that midfield instead of Kovacic or something, like, or you know, he goes to Europe somewhere else. Although that being said, like, he's on an 8-year deal, and there's not a lot of teams with a lot of money out there at the minute.
No.
So
and it's not, you know, unless he kicks up a fuss, it's like Chelsea aren't going to be, you know, you imagine Chelsea won't sort of let themselves be bullied into like sort of selling at a price that they don't.
Well, they might
want.
have to.
You never know.
They might
that's the thing.
They might have to sell, like, to avoid sanctions and points deductions. But even then, like, you've still got to find someone willing to actually pay them. Like, it would always be a case of, oh well, Barca or Real will buy one of them. But like, Barca are still, I mean, how many levers have they got left? And Real won't be making any big signings because they're going to be giving all the King Midas's money to Kylian Mbappe in the summer. So
yeah,
like it's really funny, like, watching Real do like competent transfer business for about 5 or 6 years, only to absolutely spunk it all up the wall this summer when Kylian Mbappe comes available. Like, put him on a $2 million a week contract or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you say,
just on Chelsea quickly before we finish, like, because I've seen some people sort of like, I think TalkSport sort of brought up as like a, you know, not as like an actual rumor, but just like a what if. So I'll run it past you. Not necessarily where you think it'd be a good idea or not. Just would you like to see it? The third round with Jose Mourinho at Chelsea.
Oh, not only would I like to see that, I can see it happening.
Yeah.
Like, I can see that happening. Mourinho, you know, he'll only be there for 3 years.
Yeah. And
it will either be like incredibly successful or an absolute dumpster fire. He is the ultimate coin flip. Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's either going to be like, he could walk in there and galvanize the players that are there. The only thing is he always seems to want experienced, like, gritty campaigners, like, not just players who've done it for a long time, but like, when you go into that squad and see, like, Thiago Silva won't still be there, but, you know, Reece James, if he's ever fit, is he a run through a brick wall kind of player? Chilwell, is he a run through a brick wall kind of player? Like,
I don't think James would reach the wall.
Yeah. He got to run through a paper wall. Like, he's
you get him in 5 yards and go, oh fucking hell.
Raheem Sterling, like maybe getting his hands on players like Conor Gallagher and Enzo and those kind of players, but it doesn't seem like it's not a Mourinho squad, is it?
No,
like, it's not a win through attrition kind of squad. As much as, like, he does play some fantastic football with some of the flair players he's got, it's always that core of, like, he'd say, get rid of 15 players and bring me. I've got Michael Essien's number. Like,
yeah,
get him back at the club. See if Balak's still got his boots knocking around. Like, it'd be
bring Matic back.
Yeah. Matic again. Matic round 7. But because that's basically what happened at Roma as well, right? Like, everybody loved him, but he's just like, he's too chaotic for it to work for the long term. Like, he is just like, I can't think of like the best kind of explanation for him, but like, yeah, he's just a coin flip. Like, you know exactly what's going to happen, but it's whether you think it's worth it. Like, Spurs rolled that dice, and they rolled that dice to get a trophy. He got him to a final, and they sacked him. It's like,
the day before.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? This is mental. Like, the one thing he's there to do, and he's done it. Like, even at United, he won 3 trophies. Like,
yeah.
Was it 3 or 2?
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was now, but
3. If you count the Community Shield, I think it's 3.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Like, I think, I don't think it will happen, but like, I'd love for it to happen because it'd be hilarious. Because I don't think it would work. I think he would, knowing what he's like, I think he would mentally break about 10 of those 15 players. I think there'd be some players like, I don't want to play football ever again.
Yeah.
Like, this is not for me. Like, yeah, I think Mudryk could be out on his ass. I think if Mourinho came in, but
yeah,
like I say, long may it continue with Chelsea. They're currently 11th. They are closer to the relegation zone than they are the top 4, and I love everything about that.
Yeah,
so,
and you know, the cursed Potter reign, where it was the worst the worst team that so many Chelsea fans have seen. They're actually they both played the exact same amount of games now, 31 games. Chelsea have had better cup runs, so like this year, and obviously when Potter was in charge, they were in Europe, so he played more games sooner. But they both played 31 games, and it is like disturbingly similar. Like Potter won 12, drew 8, lost 11, so he just beat the amount of games that he'd lost. Poch won 15, drawn 5, lost 11. So they lost the same amount of games, won a couple extra. Like they've scored more goals, but conceded more goals. So I don't think it's a manager issue. I really don't.
No, I don't.
But at the same time, what do you do? What can you do? Like, what can you do in that situation? I don't think there's a team there for a manager to fix. I don't think there's a team there for a manager to get more out of. I think what you're seeing is a disjointed group of players, doing what they can, like doing their best. Even, the bizarre thing for me is like worse United teams in the last decade have performed better than this.
Yeah,
because there's at least 3 players who know how to play each other, and kind of going back to your youth players in the club kind of thing. Another thing, it's not just the knowing how to not just caring about the club. Because to be fair, like a lot of the players that come through that youth academy aren't from that academy. They're not young English players. They're like players who've been sniped at the age of 14. But they will have an inherent way of knowing how to play with each other. If you've got 2 or 3 players who've come through an academy and been playing with each other for 3 or 4 years, they'll know how to play with each other, and you're not just going to have 11 players who've never played 90 minutes next to each other before. And then put in a pressure cooker situation where it's eat or be eaten, and they ain't doing a lot of eating themselves at the minute, are they? So
no, they're not. No, I think Paul, I can't remember about to say this. I think Paul Merson summed it up quite well rather than talk about Chelsea, which was it just looks like 11 individuals. Like it's not, like I said, there's just nothing there. There's no sort of sense of team or anything. Like you've seen clubs at the start of sort of projects or their project areas in the past, like Klopp when he first went to Liverpool and Arteta first came into Arsenal, where like it may not have been going brilliantly on the pitch, but at least you can sort of look at it and go, no, there's something there. Like if we give this time, this will come good if he's backed properly and stuff. I don't see any of that for Chelsea, like at all. So
it's been the same 18 months and 2 managers. So 3 managers technically, I guess. But well, good riddance.
You get no sympathy from us. Just
zero sympathy.
You ruined football. So
you broke football, and this is hilarious. So only thing we can hope is they do fail FFP, get 80 points taken off them, and they can see Man City in League 2.
Fingers crossed.
115 charges. Final bit I think we wanted to cover, and we did kind of mention it a little bit earlier. The January window has slammed closed, and the crowd has gone mild as nothing at all happened, I don't think. I think the biggest, like genuinely, I had to think if anything had happened. I know there's been like a few little like loan deals and players coming back from loans, being sent out on loans and stuff. The only deal I can think of, and obviously you mentioned the two players that left West Ham, which is a bit of a concern because they haven't been replaced unless they're going to start bringing through some young players. The only one I can think of is Dragic at Spurs. It's a position that they needed strengthening in. I think Dragic in the last 12, 18 months has been really highly rated in Italy. Seems a very Spurs signing. Young player for, 25 million, was it? 30 million or something? I think that's a good bit of business. But other than that, there's not a whole lot. I know Adam Wharton got picked up by Palace and their usual deal of just signing one of the best young players from the Championship, which, to be fair, works for them more often than not.
Yeah, no, they're good at it. They are very good at it.
So that's a good bit of business. There's been like a few South Americans turning up in Europe. I know Vitor Roque's finally turned up at Barca. Other than that, there's just not a whole lot going on, is there, to be honest?
It's probably been the quietest January window in years. But
I think everyone's just shitting it because of this profit and sustainability thing. Like
they've
seen that, like, because for so long the FFP stuff, we're like, it's like, we'd get a slap on the wrist and a bit of a fine, and like then you see, Everton with one profit and sustainability charge got 10 points taken off, potentially 20 with another one, even though I don't think that'll actually happen. But what do I know? I don't actually know the ins and outs of it. I'm just
Yeah.
going off what I've heard from football financial experts, like double jeopardy. But we talked about that last week.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of teams, I know United are flying too close to the sun in terms of their FFP. Chelsea obviously can't spend any money. Man City, I mean, they could probably spend money because they'll only declare it as 40p spent. And everyone is like worried now because, you know, there's the Everton thing, there's the Forest thing. I'm sure there's other teams under investigation and, you know, being scrutinized as well because, you know, Premier League teams have been spending more money than everyone else for a long period of time. And I know they earn a lot of money, but I don't think all of them are running fully in a profitable way.
No.
So, yeah, it could be squeaky bum time for quite a few teams, and it might actually it might even things out a bit if it means that the big teams can't just spend 300-400 million a season on players and contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I never liked the fact that like going into the window, it was kind of like the whole thing was like, well, who's going to sign Ivan Toney? And I'm like, well, no one, because Brentford, Thomas Frank has said our asking price is at least 100 million. And I'm like, well, and then there's, will Chelsea get him? Will Arsenal get him? I'm like, are we just going to ignore the fact that like Arsenal have already spent 100 million pound on one player in the summer, and then 65 on Havertz, 30 odd, 35 odd on Timbers. They've done about 200 million already, without really sending any big players with big money. Chelsea have spent £1 billion, in the time Bowley's been there. So I don't think they should have 100 million quid back of the sofa to get Ivan Toney in. Like, it's just not going to happen. It feels like. I'll say, I know pundits have got to try, and TV and radio and stuff have got to try and make the transfer window to be this big exciting thing. But it's and as well, January. It's it sounds a bit of a cliche, but you're paying overinflated prices in January a lot of the time anyway. Because especially if you're a player that doesn't, the selling team doesn't want to let go of, they can charge you more in January because it's midway through the season. You're going to have to pay a little bit more of the odds. So I think that's why as well. Teams are probably even more reluctant to spend because it's like, well, we're going to overpay and we might get points deducted if we break, profit sustainability rules or whatever. So it's just not worth the risk.
And everything's so tight as well. It's a lot of teams aren't going to be sure whether they're going to make it into Europe, let alone the Champions League and things like that. No one's sure whether fifth place is going to mean a Champions League spot for the Premier League as well, which is a massive difference in terms of the income. And Spurs have spent a lot of money this season as well. United, like I say, already kind of right up against the limit of what they can spend. I think in the summer there's going to be a lot of people leaving United in the summer, for whatever they can get for them, basically, just to kind of clear house. So we'll see what happens with that. But as well, without knowing what European competition you're going to be in, without knowing what kind of profit you're going to be making at the end of the year, and without knowing what other teams around you are going to be getting charged for, if anything, it could change things massively. And again, it's summer's when you should really be doing your business anyway. The odd pickup, like I say, Dragisin coming in as a third choice centre back at Spurs when everyone's fit, I think it is a great bit of business for a 21-year-old.
Their money replaces Eric Dyer as well.
Yeah.
It's an upgrade. So anything is an upgrade on Eric Dyer. So.
Yeah. Well, not Ferrari Kane.
No, bless him.
the bromance. It's been interesting to see. I've actually I've got all of the transfer business, the top 25 bits of transfer business that have been done this season. This January. There's no one over in terms of fees paid. That is, there's no one over the age of 25.
Yeah,
most is 18-year-old, 19, 20. So is people picking up young players, for the future? Like you saw, is it Barco's signed for Brighton? I think he's staying at Boca for another at the end of the season. But it is what it used to be, the January window. You pick up a couple of young players to kind of get them in the team and get them used to it. United used to be brilliant at that, picking up a player in January. That was when we signed a 23-year-old Evra and a 22-year-old Vidic, and they
I say you got
for
Vidic
6
in
months.
January, didn't you?
Yeah. And that's what it used to be, just picking up young players for a bit of, not extortionate amounts of money. And the summer will be where, if there's big money spent, that's where it'll be spent. But I think the summer's going to be weird as well, because I don't know.
They're changing the rules, aren't they? I think with the PSR, I think they're talking about changing or adjusting the sort of the amount of money you can lose per season and stuff like that. Yeah. So because I think teams are sort of saying this isn't really the way it is now, it's a little bit outdated in terms of the figures, and it's not super fair. So it might end up adjusting, and that might give teams a little bit more freedom.
I think as well, like I think this is the last year where the COVID season will be included in the PSR calculation. So I think just naturally, I think there'll be more profit in there, so there'll be more cash and more stuff like that. But I mean, I don't just necessarily mean about like teams spending money and what they can afford to spend, but like players moving out because there's not a lot of money everywhere else other than maybe Bayern. Italy still absolutely strapped. You can like I say, I don't think Real Madrid are going to spend a load of money with the inevitable signing of Kylian Mbappe. Barcelona, God knows what's going to happen with them. They could go either way. Who knows?
Absolute mess of a football club they are.
Yeah.
Christ.
But also like the thing that bailed a lot of teams out the summer just gone and like really drove a lot of movement was the Saudi Pro League, and already.
Yeah,
players wanting to leave, players trying to get out there. You got obviously Jordan Henderson's moved to Ajax, which was great going seeing Southgate ignore all the players playing in the Premier League that could be getting a call up to his England squad and flew to Ajax to go watch his debut. So he's got the Euros.
I haven't got an issue with that, but it's another stick, I guess. So
he's got plenty of sticks to beat him with. He doesn't need more. But yeah, that was a lot of the funding was from there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Doubtless they'll be happy to spend the money. It'll be interesting to see if anybody wants to go there, because it feels like 6 months in, people like players, from what I'm understanding from like reports and stuff, players are already like, yeah, this ain't what I thought it was going to be. Like, it's one thing. It's one thing when Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar are going, oh yeah, this is great. It's like, yeah, they've literally built palaces for you. You are earning.
And at the end of their careers as well.
Yeah. But you've got a lot of players who it seems want to get out already. So yeah, maybe it'll be a failed experiment. Maybe it'll make them kind of invest more internally in terms of like the infrastructure, but that takes years to do.
Yeah.
It's not like the influx of players in the MLS, because it's a sporting nation. So there is like, even though it's not like the biggest stadiums and the biggest draw and all that kind of stuff, like it's still a sporting nation where there's a fervor for local people to watch live sports. Where like it just feels like the stadiums in the middle of nowhere with 800 people turning up, like in a nation where there's not a lot of people anyway. Without a history, like a significant history of sporting endeavor, like I don't know. It's
you've seen it, like, just a little bit of a tangent, but I saw it with the I can't remember what the fight was. There was boxing on recently. I think Joshua and Wilder were fighting, not each other, but on the same card.
Yeah.
Atmosphere was like you could hear a pin drop throughout both the fights. Yeah. Not the most exciting fights, obviously. I'm sure if it was like it's going to be Fury and Usyk at some point this year, but like I'd be amazed if the atmosphere is like electric or anything. And the fights I have seen out there have been the same, and you're seeing that again in the football stadiums. It's like you said, well, it's all well and good having all his money and getting all these big names over there, but if the viewing public isn't there for it, even if you're watching on TV, it does sort of bring it down as a bit of a spectacle, because it's just like, it just feels incredibly soulless, and it sort of amplifies what it actually is, which is just it's sports washing. Like
well, I watch quite a few wrestling pay-per-views and stuff, and like the WWE have an event there every year pretty much, and it's the same thing. It's like there's a load of people sat there, but it's like eerie, like eerily quiet. Like it's a weird thing. Like I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for it. Obviously, they've got the pulling power of Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar, and like the headlines that'll draw. But
how long?
It can only go so far, right? Like
that's the thing. Ronaldo's what, 40? Like
nearly, yeah.
I know he says he could play for another like 5 years, but like, come on, like he's got like 5 years max if we're being generous.
Neymar, he probably can, yeah. He couldn't cut it in a top 5 league. Like,
no, Neymar's broken. Like he signed and then did his ACL, so he's out. He's out for a year.
He's been injured for 4 years anyway. Like
it's exactly. If they get Salah, he'll be at the end of it, towards the end of his career. They'll probably get 3 or 4 years out of him. And then, but even with Salah, I'm like, I know the money must be tempting, but I'm sure Henderson's been chatting to him, being like, mate, it's
Well,
not worth it.
this was always the thing. Like, I think the time, if they were going to get him, January would have been the last time that they would have been able to do it, because I think come summer, like, yeah, they might throw 100 million at Liverpool and offer him £1 million a week, but he might look at what's going on there and the quality of it. And granted, it might be different for a Muslim going into a Muslim nation, you know, an Arabic nation. It might be different for them, but at the same time, it's you want to leave, you want to finish your career on a high, and I don't know, like, how much money's enough money. You know, he's not going to be a poor bloke. He's on, like, what's he, 400 grand a week at Liverpool, like.
Yeah, and you feel like he could perform in the Premier League for at least another 3 seasons. I don't think he's at the sort of stage of his career where he's like, okay, I can go retire in Saudi and play sort of semi-professional standard football for the next 2 years and just cash in. Do you know what I mean? Like,
he could go anywhere else. He could see his contract out and go to, you know, he could, you know, do the usual player in their mid-30s thing and go to Italy. Like, he'd probably still tear it up in Italy.
Yeah, then he plays you 37.
Yeah. Like, defenders don't run over there.
No, exactly.
Chris Smalling looks like Paolo Maldini.
Just on the transfer window, just to wrap it up. Whilst it may not have been exciting for the wider world of football, West Ham had an absolute doozy of an end to the transfer window without actually signing anyone. So I'll sort of do like a brief rundown of what happened, because it's very West Ham of what happened. So we've obviously brought in Calvin Phillips. That's fine. No issues with that. Since November, David Moyes has been talking about how we need a left winger. I'm a left winger short. Need to get them. We really want to get a left winger in January. Recruitment team identify this young Ghanaian kid called Ibrahim Osman, who's, you know, well thought of, plays for Northland, same pathway that Kudus had. Cool. All looks like it's getting sorted. Ben Rama's going to be off to Lyon. We're getting rid of Fornals. There's a space open in the squad to get a left winger in. If that doesn't work out, we're also looking at Jota from Saudi Arabia on loan for like end of the season, just like a stopgap signing. He'll be fine. You know, Moyes likes him. All good. The recruitment team, in their infinite wisdom, don't realise that Ibrahim Osman is currently in the middle of a agent dispute. So basically, no one. I think it turned out that the agent we'd been speaking to wasn't actually his agent. So that caused a big uproar. On top of that, you've apparently got an advisor going to David Sullivan. I think you're going to say, I don't think he's worth what you're prepared to pay for him. So I wouldn't go as high as you. And so Sullivan basically went, oh, okay, yeah, we're not doing that then. Which basically is a big fuck you to the recruitment team anyway. And then Jota, their backup player, who we wanted to go for, it's because he plays in Saudi. There's going to be tax complications in getting him to sign. So it's quite tricky, this one. So I think we're going to move on from that one now. So this is on deadline day as well. It's like the day before deadline day. So the only 2 wingers that we could have gone for, one of them you didn't know had an agent dispute. The other one you didn't think, was the tax situation going to be okay given he's playing in Saudi? But that's fine, because Ben Rama and Fornals are still here. No, we're still going to try and move them on. And then what I can only describe as, the club have said this was like a technical issue. I think, and if I know David Sullivan, I think he's tried to pull a bit of a fast one. What essentially happened was, Ben Rama and Fornals had both signed their contracts to go to Lyon and to Betis. And then the window slams shut, and it transpires that West Ham haven't submitted the official paperwork to like the FIFA, official FIFA website that deals with all transfer, like the FIFA database, basically, which prompts Lyon to release a statement calling us disrespectful and like basically accusing us of shithousery, essentially. And Betis also going like, yeah, we've done our jobs. I don't know what's going on with West Ham. Like, we're trying to get over the line. And it had to get lodged to appeal, had to get lodged to FIFA for both signings to eventually ratify them a few days after the transfer window shut. So whilst we didn't sign anyone, I had a fantastic deadline day because I was just sitting there every half hour, more updates coming on, being like, oh, for crying out loud. Because I'm sitting there thinking we're going to have like Ben Rama and Fornals in the squad for United game, and they're both going to be really pissed off because they thought they were leaving. And they're just going to be like, cheers, guys. Thanks. Appreciate that. So, yeah.
Another exercise in incompetence. It's
West Ham United strike again. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm amazed that United didn't do some ridiculous nonsense in the transfer window, spend 150 million on a player that we can get for free in the summer or something. Like, that seems to be our current thing.
Maybe Ineos is working. Maybe it is the way forward.
Well, on that, like, it's amazing. watching Man United do competent sporting decisions is a weird thing. Like, it's something that I've not been used to in a long time. So it's like,
you got the City CEO, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, we've not had a CEO who like a football CEO, or not had a CEO. Like, we've had whatever titles that all these other people who aren't football people have had in the past have had. We've got like different directors on the way in. We've got like sporting directors and like recruitment directors coming in. It's like, holy shit, like we're actually doing things. It's like we're not hiring the bloke who negotiated the deal for the Glazers to rob Man United. Like, it's like he got that job because he managed to hoodwink us and, you know, basically lumber us with £1.5 billion worth of debt. And he was there for a decade until we hired another incompetent bloke who didn't know what he was doing anyway. It was another internal hire by the Glazers. So yeah, it's nice to actually see someone who, I mean, you know, before it all happened, before it was all ratified, like, it's not even been ratified yet, but before the bid had been submitted, everyone's going, well, Ineos haven't done that great in other things, and there's a lot of question marks over it. It's like, yeah, but we have literally, other than maybe Barcelona, where I don't think that's incompetence. I think it's like malicious negligence. Like, they're almost like selling off the future so they can have something now. Like, they know what they're doing. It's like, that's corrupt. Whereas I think it's actually just complete negligence and lack of care that United have been run like. The only reason that we aren't in a similar situation to the clubs that have ended up like, you know, the whole Leeds situation and Portsmouth situation is because we earn so much fucking money that it's almost impossible to like end up in that situation. I think if something like this had ever happened 20 years ago, it could have been a similar thing to a Leeds thing. It could have been a similar thing to, you know, to clubs like that. Even because then the disparity between earnings wasn't so high.
Yeah,
it's just so. It's just that they've wanted to keep the lifeline there. They wanted to keep the heart rate bleeping away so that they can keep the profit rolling through. And that's the only thing that's really helped us, really. Like, it's not been any kind of competent running or any good football decision making, save a couple of decent signings and the odd trophy here and there. So yeah, actually seeing competent football people and sporting people come in football and sporting positions is bizarre. And like, not seeing us offer Tony Martial a new 4-year contract. So, yeah, he's off. Like, and like not being bent over a barrel by Rafael Varane's agent. Like, I think the fact that he's getting in the team more, I think he might sign a new deal on lesser terms. Like, because he's still good, like good enough. He's only 30, 31. Like, he's in his peak. He's got a bit of an injury issue, but if he signs a lower deal, then yeah, I'll happily see him around. But we ain't going to be spending 70 million quid on Casemiro and giving him 350 grand a week anymore, I don't think, which is nice.
It's a step in the right direction. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Yeah. Like I said, I think the summer's going to be interesting for United in particular, in terms of like if Ineos are fully in place by that point, in terms of what their business looks like and what their like negotiations look like as well. I think it's going to be really interesting.
From what I'm hearing from people in the know, it is a case of like they're walking before they run, basically. So they're getting the people in the right positions rather than trying to do an overhaul straight away. It's like, no, let's get the people in to actually look at everything that's going on and change it one thing at a time. It might even be a case of like they give Ten Hag another 12 months, even if they don't get Champions League this year or don't finish in the top 6, just because it's like, okay, yeah, it's not been a great year. He could have a half-decent second half of the season, and it might be like, okay, there's green shoots there. Like, is it worth spending however much it'll cost to get rid of him and however much it'll cost to write the signings that have been made and all that kind of stuff at the same time? Or do we give him something to work with and see if he's want to do it? Because let's not forget, 18 months ago, he was the hipster manager. He was the he was the manager that everyone was saying should come in. He was the Unai Emery. He was the Alonso. You know, like he's doing great things with a club that shouldn't be doing this. It's like, okay, well, maybe just give him a little bit of a run then. He's had a bad 6 months, but we'll see. Anyway, me waffling on again about Ten Hag. Ball Brotherhood.
He's still here. He's still here. So not much anyone can do about it anyway. So.
Right then. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. We'll throw out some questions to the viewing and listening public for next week. So keep an eye on the socials for that at What are the socials for that? Actually, I forgot.
It is at United Frontcast on Twitter
Frontcast, yeah,
and everywhere else.
And everywhere else, yeah. United Frontcast everywhere. Obviously, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing, thumbs upping, 5-starring, whatever you're doing. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. And we will see you next week. Take it easy, guys.
And don't forget to keep laughing at Chelsea. That's also very important. So.
It's good. If nothing else, it's good for your mental health.
Exactly.
And bad for those.